Welcome back to my channel. Today I will be doing a plan with me in my Erin Condren A5 wide vertical life planner. I will be using this kit from Simply a Mess called Falling for You. It's this gorgeous kit I picked up last year during a sale. I just love the purple hues just because usually like fall kits are always orange. And I like it to a degree, but I just thought this was a bit different, so I picked it up. So these are the full boxes. You also get some boxes here, but I've already kind of laid them down, as well as your bottom washi and glitter headers, followed by all the kind of extra date covers, etc. And then I also picked up the extra box sheet just because I find I usually don't have enough boxes because I like to coordinate between two planners. So I use this planner for all my academic, so for my grad school life, work, etc. But then I will use my print impression for everything outside of school, so just general life things, and I like to kind of coordinate between the two. So I'm gonna jump into the planning of this week. So I guess I'll start with maybe the bottom washi. Today I thought I could talk more about what it's like being a grad student, and just like kind of what your day-to-day life looks like as a grad student. Mind you, this will be like very different, like depending what program, what school you're at, and everything, because when you do apply for grad school, there's like different things to consider. So most times, grad school is very research-based. So usually you have some type of major research project, whether it be a thesis or dissertation. But recently there's been like some rise in popularity for things outside of research base, which makes sense because research culture sucks, is how I'll put it nicely. It's quite intense. You're expected to kind of devote your whole life to research, and it's very hard to maintain a work-life balance. So it's quite stressful to like work in academia, and a lot of folks go into grad school even wanting to go in academia, or maybe not wanting to go in academia, and coming out of it and working like kind of in the business world and learning to like apply their skills. So recently there's kind of been more of a movement for more like applied programs. So these might look like course-based programs, or a mix. So technically, like my program, I'm in like a traditional research stream. So like I have the like research, like I had my thesis and my master's, and I had my dissertation now in my PhD, but I also have courses I take, which I guess is like, if you look at other programs, so I believe I mentioned this before but not yet in the video, is I am in industrial organizational psychology. So basically I like to explain this is like psychology work applied to the workplace. So typically, like, we're often applied to things like selection, so how to choose like the best employee who like best fits in the role. So we try to, through different like hiring practices, we try to like recruit and hire the people who will best fit in the role, and we're trying to predict their performance in the role. So that's like a typical like kind of career topic or field people go into. Another is like the actual organization itself, because like human interaction does not stop at the hiring process. It also continues within organizations, and this is what I'm more interested in. So I'm kind of interested in, especially like a lot of my research has been on actual like organizational behaviors. So again, these like range pretty far. Like there can be like in the context of, for managers specifically, in the context of like teams, looking at like kind of organizational processes as a whole. So like things like corporate culture, as well as, like then the actual like employees' behaviors and how they interact. And so, generally look at, like in the most basic terms, is looking to make like workplaces good, so that you feel engaged in your work, you feel kind of happy with your work, you do good work, So it's kind of like balancing the trade-off for the organization as well as for the employee. You know, so that's kind of like a gist of like what my program is. So it actually, like, looking at it, sounds very practical, which it is. But generally, like, the expectation is that you go into research. Like, even in these grad programs, like, you're expected to want to do research, which I don't. I did go in wanting to, I'm having a hard time choosing which boxes. I did go in wanting to do research. Like, I love research, and that's why I wanted to do grad school. Like, even before I narrowed my interest to IO psychology, I always knew that I wanted, I'm trying to decide which ones. I like the baking ones. I always knew, like, I liked research and I wanted to go to grad school. And just through, like, my volunteering in undergrad, that's when I kind of found a passion for things like leadership and teamwork and things. So that's when I got kind of invested in IO psychology. But yes, anyways, so, like, for at least, there's, in my country, Canada, there was only 5 really IO programs. I think now there's maybe a 6th or 7th. It's not, like, technically IO psychology, but it's, what do we call it? Like, HRM, like human resource management, or, it's basically, like, they're business programs. So there are business programs where you can study and they overlap a lot, but I'm on in terms of, like, having it in the psychology side, it's pretty rare. I think in the States, though, they have, like, a lot of programs. So again, this might differ based off in the States. But yeah, so essentially, in Canada, like, our programs are pretty research-based. Sometimes we have practical components, and that's actually why I chose the school I'm at, is because they do have a practical component. So we have a consulting firm within our program, so you do get real life experience, which is great. And that's why I ended up choosing it. I keep wanting to use this one and then I decide not to. But yeah, so, but because we have, like, this practical component, we're kind of a hybrid. So we do, like, the consulting, we do research, and we do coursework as well. And coursework is a weird one, and I have mixed feelings about it. One, because it's great in the sense is that I've gained, like, this wide, extensive knowledge in, you know, something I'm not really, I think if I was to go to the workplace, I wouldn't be able to speak about a lot of topics that I've since learned in my program. As well as, like, I know other programs, like, some programs literally have no courses at all. And one, that can be, like, really isolating, because coursework, like, helped me also bond with people in my program, but, like, also, like, as I said, it gave me knowledge that, like, is going to help prepare me for my career, as well as just, like, help prepare me for my research. So the thing is, like, you still do research, and you have to, like, know what you're doing. And so sometimes you're doing, like, these complicated analyses. So I'm very grateful. For example, like, my program teaches a lot of stats. So I'm grateful for the experience to get the statistical knowledge, because if I didn't learn it in class, I would have to learn it on my own. So I'm glad that I at least got that head start of learning it while, like, being supported by others, instead of having to completely, like, figure it out on my own. But it does, in terms of, like, the day-to-day, make it quite hectic, because, you know, as a grad student, and again, I think, again, it varies per program, but if you're in, like, a research-based program, like, your research is a full-time career. Like, and I think that's kind of a misperception about grad school that people have, is that they think it's just more schooling, and that's not what it is. It is a job. Like, you are doing research. And often, so I'm very fortunate too, like, our programs are funded, and so you actually do get paid money to do the research, which is nice. Mind you, it is not a lot, and you still have to pay tuition often, although some programs do allow stipends where or, like, tuition reimbursements where they'll pay for your tuition back. So you don't actually have to cover that in your costs. Mine unfortunately does not, but I still get paid to do research, which is great. So it is like a job, but mind you, like they don't pay you a lot, like not really a living wage, just because like you're still essentially like they're still training you to be a researcher. Like you're not a full researcher yet. There's a lot of training and investment that goes into your learning. And so in terms of grad school, I guess I'd say the day-to-day is quite variable, especially semester by semester, because if I have courses, you know, I might have a course one day. In terms of courses, they look a little different from undergrad. Like undergrad I found was more like lecture-based style. So you go, you lecture, you do an essay and test to kind of test your knowledge. Grad school is a little bit different, or at least my program is. So basically, oftentimes it's very discussion-based. So typically we get a bunch of readings we have to do a week, and then you come to class and you just discuss the readings, and it's that for 3 hours. It's weird. I hated it a lot at first because I was pretty like anxious talking to people. But it's actually like now that I'm kind of, you know, partway through my PhD, like I've seen that's really helped me grow and like really helped me develop my critical thinking skills, because I got to see like other people, how they thought and what they thought about articles, and then kind of like it just helped me grow, like seeing what people think of articles, like their strengths and weaknesses. And it's like taught me a lot of terms and things in research, so it's been great in that sense. Stats courses though are a little different, so usually they're typically partly lecture based and then partly practice based. So typically we get on like R or something for half the course, and then we actually kind of run the analysis we were talking about. So actually I've loved stats courses because they're very practical in a sense. Like you get to learn about all these different analyses, then you actually get to practice them, which is great. So typically a course might take out like 10 hours of my week. So they can take up a good portion of day though when you do have them. So I have a course on Tuesday, and it usually takes up about, like, each class is usually 3 hours long, so class itself usually takes up 3 hours in a day. Then you usually have readings, and then usually you have some type of assignments on top. Typically they're essay based, unless it's a stat course, then usually they're like practical. So they're like running the analysis and reporting them. And so that's what kind of courses look like out of my day, but there's still lots of stuff like in between. And so as I said, we also have like a very practical component of my program. So we have a consulting firm, and the way this operates is also kind of like a course. So we actually like sign up for it, and we take it as a course, and we take it for 3 years in our program. And how this works is basically like we work on teams and we work with a real client. So it's kind of like an assignment almost, but you're working throughout the semester. And basically you get a client, you get a project, and you have to work with that client to do the project. I've done various work. So I've done like selection tools, so designing like selection assessment tools. Right now I'm doing like an employee engagement survey. So I'm, you know, collecting data on employees in an organization to see how engaged they are, and then kind of reporting the engagement and comparing it to past years as well as like across industry. I also what else have I done? Oh, I've done like performance appraisal things and some trainings as well, and trainings is actually what I'm kind of most interested in. Like I find it the most interesting. I have to look this up, but so yeah, I'll, you know, usually have you know, some type of consulting work built into the week. Often these look like team meetings, client meetings, meeting with the supervisor to talk about the project, as well as just like working on the project itself. And so that adds in some time because, you know, you have meetings, you have the work and things. As well as, you know, I have oftentimes, so like we do get some money, but it's not even close to livable. So oftentimes we do like teaching and research on the side. So this semester I'm doing a research job and a teaching job. So I'm not fully teaching like a course. Like our courses, like how they work at my university, tend to be really large. So they can be anywhere from like 150 to like 600 people. And then usually they have like some type of seminar or lab component where essentially then you meet with a TA, so a teaching assistant, and they kind of run these smaller things. So the lectures is like more content based where they learn the content, and then the seminars and labs are like applied based, and they get to like work on their skills and get to like kind of apply the knowledge they've learned. And so what I do is I usually teach, and I've done this most semesters, is teach a weekly seminar. And they've so far been kind of on topics like similar to my program and interests. And so I actually find that like really fulfilling. Like I really like interacting with students and mentoring them in a sense. But it is a lot of work. Again, it takes up about 10 hours of my week, because usually I teach for about an hour to an hour and a half a week. I also have to prep for that seminar though, and like practice the slides, then design the slides and things like that, as well as then usually you have some type of grading component. So usually we do some type of like weekly in-lab assignment that we grade, just to keep students accountable. But then also we will do some type of like larger assignment which we grade. So you'll kind of see that later on in December. Like I have some client reports I have to grade for the seminar I'm teaching this semester. And so you also have teaching duties as well as sometimes research duties. So right now I'm doing a research job. So I'm working with kind of local organizations to kind of do some type of program evaluation. So I'm evaluating some programs, just again, like to provide some like strengths and weaknesses and recommendations for the future. I realize this color doesn't match. Oh no. I'm gonna see if I have a yellow flag, but I don't think I do. Oof. Okay. Should I unmatch it? I don't like that. Okay, let me see what I can do and I'll kind of talk through more. So yeah, that's kind of the teaching and the research component. It looks different. Like mine is very applied right now. For other schools, it can be quite research focused. So sometimes it's just working with a supervisor and helping them on some research tasks. And so yeah, that's kind of the research, like the work component. So aside from like class and like work, you also have like your actual research, and like that's kind of the biggest part of grad school is the research. So, and this is kind of like what happens in between all these things. So it is basically a full-time job you're working, doing research. So typically you take on some large project that's your own. So you usually create the project, you kind of find a gap in the literature, you apply a theory and try to address it, and then conduct some research to address it. And they're very large scale projects. So, you know, usually do one in the master's, usually it's a thesis, and you do that for the 2 years. And then in the PhD, you do a dissertation, at least at my school. And that's kind of what takes up your day-to-day, and that looks very different based off the semester you're in. So earlier on the project, in your program, you're kind of figuring out what, I'm gonna see if I yellow flag, I don't know. You're kind of figuring out what your topic is, like getting to know the literature, figuring out your topic. And then later on in your program, you're going to be writing your proposal, because you have to propose it to your committee, and then they have to approve it and give you feedback and kind of help you develop the idea. And then you also have like then actually running the study, whatever design it is. Sometimes it involves like being in a lab, sometimes it's online, sometimes it's in person people. It really depends what your research is. And then you have to analyze and write up your actual thesis or dissertation. And so that can take it takes a while, so depending on the semester you're in, that's what you'll be doing most days. I will, I guess, actually caveat that your dissertation could actually be, it doesn't necessarily have to be one large project. It could be multiple kind of smaller projects that build onto each other. So usually it's like a couple chapters and it's not just one big idea. And usually you're doing multiple studies. And so one study might find one thing and then you decide to like add another component and study another population. And then it kind of builds onto each other. Because research, like, it's hard. Like, you want it to be meaningful, that it's building on in a new way, but you can't make such big jumps because then it calls into question a lot of parts of the actual study itself. So if you slowly kind of like build onto each other, it allows you to like really kind of establish, you know, confidence in what you're finding. I don't think I have any yellow flags. I'm trying to think what to do. But yeah, so research then kind of fills your day-to-day. Again, it looks different for different people. So next semester, I'm not going to have any coursework or consulting work. So I'm actually going to have most of my time just for work, like TAing and research, and then my actual, like, research itself. And so, like, that will be nice because then I don't have, like, kind of my day full of courses and, you know, consulting projects and things, and can actually kind of take it a little easier and fill up my day with research. I think there's also, though, like, a lot of hidden things that, like, you just don't think about when it comes to, maybe I can cut one. Sorry, I'm keep jumping back and forth. But yeah, there's a lot of, like, hidden things I don't think you really think about with grad school, and I'm sure it's like this with any job. You know, like, you're emailing students, you often have like committee meetings, and like you're often on like different advisory boards or multiple research projects, because the more you publish, the more likely you're able to get funding, and usually you have funding applications because the funding they provide you is not a lot. So there's a lot that kind of goes into day-to-day. I'm gonna wrap up here, I think, just because I'm running out of time, and figure out what to do with this. But yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to hear more about grad school, I'm happy to talk about it in future videos. If you also have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching.